a man heard of a wise monk who lived atop the highest mountain, a monk who held the secret to success. Many had tried to reach him, but only a rare few ever made it. The journey was brutal. No roads, no shortcuts, just endless steep climbs, harsh weather, and relentless obstacles. But the man set off, full of hope. By the third day, his body ached. His mind screamed at him to quit. He saw others turn back, shaking their heads, saying, "It's impossible." But he refused to turn back. Step by step, through exhaustion, doubt, and pain, he climbed. Days turned into weeks. His body adapted. His mind sharpened. He stopped thinking about the end and focused only on the next step. And then, after a full month of struggle, he finally reached the top. Breathless, battered, but victorious, he stood before the monk. "I made it," he gasped. "Now tell me, what is the secret to success?" The monk looked at him and said, "There is no secret." The man frowned. "What do you mean?" The monk smiled. "For the last 30 days, you endured pain. You stayed disciplined. You kept moving forward when others gave up. You didn't wait for success. You became it. Success isn't something you find at the top of a mountain. It's built in every step, every struggle, every moment you refuse to quit." The man stood in silence, realizing the truth. So now, ask yourself, are you waiting for success, or are you becoming it? In a quiet village, two farmers lived side by side, each with the same size land, same seeds, and the same dream: to grow a thriving harvest. The first farmer rushed to his field every morning, digging up his seeds in search of growth. When he saw nothing, frustration took over. Maybe the soil is bad, he thought, and dug up the seeds to move them. Maybe they need more water, he added, and drowned them. Maybe they need more sun, he thought, and exposed them to the harsh rays. Day after day, he changed the conditions, hoping to speed up the process. But instead of helping, his impatience weakened the seeds. Eventually, they stopped growing. Defeated, he abandoned his field and gave up. The second farmer planted his seeds and watered them daily. He protected them from storms, but never doubted their strength. He knew that growth happens beneath the surface first. Seasons passed, the sun burned hot, and the rains came heavy. Still, he remained patient. Then, one morning, tiny green shoots pushed through the soil. Days later, stems, then leaves. Before he knew it, his entire field was alive, full, thriving, abundant. His patience had turned seeds into a harvest. Most people are like the first farmer, impatient and desperate for quick results. They plant a dream, but when progress is slow, they panic, second guess, and quit too soon. But real growth takes time. The most important work happens beneath the surface, where no one sees it. Success isn't about speed, it's about consistency. Measure your life by the quiet, unseen work, the workouts, the late-night studying, the small efforts no one applauds. Yet, the magic isn't in the final bloom, but in showing up day after day. Keep planting, keep watering. One day, your harvest will come, not because you forced it, but because you never stopped believing it would. There was a man who gave everything to others, always there, always kind, never saying no. He poured his heart into people who wouldn't do the same for him. Then one day, his world collapsed. The ones he trusted the most, gone. The ones he loved the most, betrayed him. And when he fell to his lowest, when he needed them the most, no one stood beside him. He was left in the dark, alone, broken. But that night, something changed. He realized his kindness wasn't the problem. His boundaries were. That his love wasn't a debt to be paid. It was a fire to be earned. That he had spent too long setting himself on fire to keep others warm. So he stopped chasing. He stopped begging. He turned that pain into power. He woke up at 5 a.m. He started meditating, training, building. He stopped giving himself to people who only drained him. And as he grew, he realized something powerful. The kindest hearts break the hardest, but only the broken learn to rebuild themselves unbreakable. Now he walks with strength. Now he moves with purpose. Now he's the man people once overlooked. But now, they can't ignore. And you, are you still waiting for people to value you? Or are you ready to become the person they regret losing? How many times have you said, I'll start tomorrow? Tomorrow comes, and you push it to the next day, then the next. Weeks turn into months. Dreams stay dreams. Sound familiar? You're not alone. We convince ourselves that later is the perfect time. But later never comes. You say you're not ready. You fear failure. You worry about what people will say. But here's the truth. No one is ever truly ready. The comfort zone feels safe, but it's a trap. Fear, doubt, setbacks. They're not stop signs. They're part of the process. Winners don't wait for motivation. They don't let fear make their decisions. They take risks. They learn from failure. They push forward, even when everything tells them to stop. Growth begins when excuses end. Set the goal. Take the step. Face the fear. You've struggled before, yet you're still here. That means you're stronger than you think. Success doesn't come from waiting. It comes from starting. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now so tell me, what are you waiting for?
Most people know about the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan by America, but do you know why it happened? In the 1930s, Japan wanted to build a larger empire and needed more resources, like oil, rubber, and coal. Unable to accept Japan's growing power, the US decided to stop sending supplies to Japan. As a result, Japan became desperate. So they attacked the US Navy at Pearl Harbor to stop America from getting in their way. During the attack, Japan killed over 2,400 Americans. This made the US really angry, and the very next day, they declared war on Japan and officially joined World War II. After that harbor attack, the US won battles like the Battle of Midway and others against Japan, but the attack on Pearl Harbor still hurt them. After that, the US bombed cities like Tokyo and Osaka, killing over 1 lakh people, but Japan still didn't surrender. So, the US decided to use a new weapon, the atomic bomb. They dropped bombs on 2 cities, Hiroshima on August 6th and Nagasaki on August 9th. Over 2 lakh people were killed in these bombings. Finally, Japan surrendered to the US, which ended World War II. A Soviet officer received a red alert. If he reported it, World War III would begin. If he ignored it, his country could be in danger. He had just seconds to decide. What did he do? In 1983, during the Cold War, America and the Soviet Union had thousands of nuclear weapons and were ready to attack each other at any moment. At that time, Stanislav Petrov was monitoring nuclear threats in the Soviet Union. Suddenly, the computer issued a red alert, reporting that 5 missiles were heading toward the Soviet Union. According to Soviet rules, if such an alert appeared, it had to be reported to higher authorities immediately. The reason? Once that alarm was received, the Soviet Union would launch a counterattack. If this happens, it could turn into a world war. Do you know what Stanislav Petrov did in this critical situation? If America were really attacking us, they wouldn't use just 5 missiles, he thought. Believing it must be a technical error, he decided not to report it to his superiors. Minutes later, he realized he was right. He had saved millions of lives. In 1955, during the war between Vietnam and America, America decided that there shouldn't be a country called Vietnam by sunrise. They sent many ships to Vietnam in the middle of the night. However, even after the next day, those ships didn't return. America became scared and tried sending more ships, but there was no response. Despite being a small country, Vietnam resisted, and the world started to question America's power. Unable to bear the criticism, America directly entered Vietnam. Upon entering, they discovered that all the weapons and ships they had sent were destroyed, and Vietnam was now ready to attack back. Yes, Vietnam won that war. When the world asked Vietnam how they defeated America with such small forces, do you know what the president of Vietnam said? Have you noticed the face of a person in the statues in many cities of our country? We won against America by studying the history of his strategies. Do you know who that person is? Chhatrapati Shivaji, who ruled India. If that king were with us, we would have ruled the world.
In a world filled with power and alliances, two strong groups emerged, NATO and BRICS. NATO, formed in 1949, consists of the United States and its European allies. They promised that if one of them faced danger, they would help each other. Now let's meet BRICS. This group is a bit different. It started in the late 2000s and includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. While NATO focuses on military strength, BRICS works together on trade and growing their economies. NATO is expanding and providing military support to countries near Russia, which makes BRICS countries concerned. Russia, an important member of BRICS, sees NATO as a threat and wants to strengthen its alliances. In the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, NATO is supporting Ukraine with military aid and imposing sanctions on Russia. Meanwhile, BRICS countries are engaging in discussions to solve problems peacefully. With NATO putting pressure on Russia, BRICS countries are exploring new trade routes and business methods that don't depend on the US dollar. This could change global trading patterns.
Did you know that ancient Egypt lost a crucial battle because of cats? In 525 BCE, the Persian king Cambyses II wanted to conquer Egypt. He knew Egyptians loved cats and saw them as sacred. They believed hurting a cat was a serious crime. So Cambyses had a sneaky idea. He ordered his soldiers to paint cats on their shields and bring real cats to the battlefield. The Egyptians wouldn't dare harm them. When the Egyptians saw the Persians with cats, they were terrified of hurting their beloved animals. They didn't know what to do and were too scared to fight. Taking advantage of the chaos, the Persians easily defeated the Egyptians. They captured Egypt and made it part of their empire, all thanks to some clever cat strategy. Alexander the Great, myths and controversies. Alexander, in a drunken argument, killed his friend and General Clitus the Black by throwing a javelin into his chest. He organized a wine-drinking contest to honor an Indian philosopher. The philosopher drank 13 liters and died 3 days later, along with 41 other contestants. Alexander met Diogenes the Cynic, who told him to stand out of my sunlight. This meeting was later depicted in a 19th century painting showing them as dogs. After defeating the Persians, Alexander began dressing like a Persian queen and married 2 Persian women. He paused his military campaign to talk with the gymnosophists, naked philosophers from Hindu and Jain traditions. Alexander had heterochromia, with one eye blue and the other brown. After his death, Alexander's generals and followers divided his empire among themselves.